I'm Nova Han. I'm a creative director for music festivals, stage shows, concerts, and immersive experiences around the world. My work has been seen by hundreds of thousands at festivals like Coachella, Electric Forest, Burning Man, and Firefly. I've worked with artists like Deadmau5, Bassnectar, and the String Cheese Incident. My job has me searching the globe to discover the industry's best artists in installations, performance, movement, set design, costumes, and emerging technologies to create some of the world's greatest live entertainment experiences. Audiences see the awe-inspiring spectacle of the final product, but they have no idea what it takes to get there. We the Creators explores the lives of the artists behind the magic, what drives them to do what they do, the sacrifices they've made, and the pain they've overcome to make art at any cost. Behind every great artist is an even greater story. This is We the Creators. Hi, and welcome to We the Creators, where our mission is to showcase the incredible artists in the immersive arts and the epic journeys that they took to get there. So today we're with my friend Michael Smalley. Smalley is a creative director and production designer for LA-based creative collective Phantom Labs. He is both a lighting and video designer and works with artists such as Pitbull, Antwoord, Bassnectar, Volbeat, and Jill Scott, as well as for world-class festivals all around the world like Electric Forest and Electric Daisy Carnival. He's also worked as a creative director and show director for legendary artists such as Mariah Carey and Shakira. The man is a wizard, a man of mighty talent and creative prowess, a person who always strives to pull from the depths of his imagination and to bring people into states of awe and wonderment. This is the world of Michael Smalley. Well, hey, welcome to the show. Great to see you. I know it's been a long time of just knowing each other through different communities and festivals and the event space, and it's been amazing just to kind of run into you all over the world and just see what you're up to.
It's like the best part of our industry, right? It's like that we get just throughout a year and throughout a lifetime, get to kind of connect and work with a bunch of really amazing creative people in a bunch of interesting and unique places, generally on a bunch of wild different projects. And it's super fun when you can kind of connect those dots with different people and different projects and, already have that kind of level of dialogue and stuff with each other. And it's always fun. It's always just great to like catch up with everybody throughout a year.
Yeah, totally.
It's a great perk for sure.
Modern day roving circus. It's just like we just construct these little towns everywhere and find each other. And I mean, I have friends that live in Australia that I see more than I have seen my friends in LA, just because of that community.
True. And it's, I think it's one of the harsh realities of the current scenario right now is that we all of a sudden realize that the people that we work with and the people that, we go out on the road with and work at festivals and everything, that those are really the people we see even more so than our significant others, our, family, our at-home friends, that it's an all-consuming thing, that those people on the road and those people that I connect with, even tertiarily, like tiny, maybe you see them for 10 minutes every year, but you see them for 10 minutes every year and it's immediately fluid and amazing and awesome. So it's very special.
How has this been for you since we've been in lockdown? We obviously haven't been able to work in our communities. What has it been like to actually be home in Vegas?
Well, it's like I moved to Vegas about 2 years ago and was busy. I mean, I literally got home from a Antwoord European tour and was working on the Christmas thing we did together as my fiance and his mother were packing up the house around me. Like literally the whole world around me was getting put into boxes as I was just like desperately working on some video projects on my computer and other things like that. And then we moved out here and I was just into things. So it has been nice to kind of slow down and get to spend some time at home and enjoy my backyard and the pool. But you don't really get to enjoy being at home because everything's shut down. Yeah. You know, so all the socialness of it. And then also just watching the bottom line of money. You can't just be going and spending and enjoying everything. So it's been a real recentering process about priorities and how blessed. I'm exceptionally blessed given the, you know, economic climate and the stuff, you know, that we're all dealing with trying to make ends meet. So I try to count those blessings daily. You know, from a creative standpoint, it's difficult. I create for a purpose. I know that lots of artists out there create art for art's sake, and that's awesome. But I feel like my art is very task oriented. Like I need a project. I need a show. Like I don't just make random bits of art. I don't craft. I don't do any of that. I wish I did, you know, but I have a very honed skill of crafty type things that create shows. Yeah. And that's truly where my passion is. Not just shows, but things that audiences go to, you know, it's not necessarily meant for like sitting around on your couch for consumption. It's not creating an object or something like that.
Well, but for as long as I've known you, I feel like you've always been really good at up-leveling your skill set. So like in this time frame, when you do have all of this downtime and we're not like gunning towards an actual project, are you focusing on like skill sets that you're trying to learn right now?
So it's been an ebb and a flow. I think that any artist, I'm sure you can associate with this, has a whole scope of things in your brain to deal with, you know, and like focus comes and goes and the artistic process comes and goes and decisions to grow and to relax come and go. I found that very early on, I was like, I have to make sense of this and have to enhance my skills. And I found that, you know, I watched a bunch of Photoshop tutorials, watched a bunch of After Effects tutorials. And then I did start playing around for quite a while making things. And that there was honestly a pretty solid quantum leap in a way that I was able to present ideas and product. But then the distressing part comes in that it's like, I can't use that new skill set applicably. I practiced it, I learned it, and now I'm just like...
And then it's like out the brain once you're not using it regularly.
Yeah, and so then I tried to shift, you know, like, cool, let's try a different thing. So there's been a bunch of bouncing around, you know, but it has been hard because so much what I do now is multidisciplinary. Yeah. You know, I make videos because I know what I'm going to do the lights, because I know where the dancers are going to be, because I know what the scening is going to be, blah, blah, blah. And those decisions all inform each other, and they're all around a structure of a show. And that now that I'm later in my career and I don't care as much about what the lights are actually doing, and I care about the whole show concept, it's tough to kind of make that up, you know, and activate on those skill sets that I'd really like to focus in. I'd like to get better at creative direction and show direction. But it has been nice to bring my crafty toolkit up to current day. And so that's what I can do right now. Is learn new skill sets and refine them.
That's a really interesting leap that you've done from going from being an LD, a lighting designer, to now a show creative director. A lot of people don't. Like, that's a very actually kind of unusual jump to do, because that's just because you know lights doesn't mean that you know jack about staging and everything else. So like I'm actually curious to hear about how you made that transition, because it's unusual and awesome.
It's definitely, it's not completely unusual. I find that a lot of lighting designers do end up eventually, if they're going to kind of reach the top, that ends up being where they're at. But a lot of folks don't feel completely compelled, or they don't have a full 360 sense of it. I think that because I started out very much theater based, I was going to see all sorts of theater, symphony, fine arts when I was a young kid, all the way through high school, being involved in that. And then in high school, I started playing with the lighting in the school that school. And our school had just this incredible, auditorium, incredible access to video technology, all at, like 9 through 12. It was extraordinary to be able to have access to that. And, there was always this sense of loving those moments in a show where all the lights came down to one point, something dramatic happened, all the scenery lifted up. That was always more compelling to me than just the lights. Yeah. And then I got into college, and as most folks do, I started going to concerts, and I went and saw Phish. And Phish's specific blend of really organizing and orchestrating things, and there is a theatricality to not just their worked music, but also their improvised music. And that the lighting, I found that a similar shift in my heart and that compulsion and that energy release came with a similar kind of like moment visually with them. And I could really relate that to the other music and theatrical interests that I had. And I was like, okay, cool. This speaks to me. Whereas doing musical theater as a long career or something like that, I knew that one may not necessarily be able to cut it in a super crazy Broadway level, and that I wanted to succeed in what I was going to do, but also knowing that like I could crush concerts, like that I understood music. I sang in a very high end choir in high school.
You sing. That's so cool.
Oh God, I don't think I have it in me anymore. But in college I was scholarshiped and sang and was like the lead in shows, and so I had the music sensibility. I just couldn't physically play something, but I could play lights. And my dad's an engineer, my grandfather's an engineer, and so I was able to blend that science and stuff together. And then I realized that I could be epic at that. Yeah. And in the jam band, jam electronic thing, lighting designers really have an ability to excel and use that as a huge trampoline into awesome pictures and a huge legacy and all these fans that care about you specifically, not just the artist on stage. And I eventually got, kind of deflated in that a bit and moved over into other things. And eventually I was like, well, I want to control more elements of the show. And the next kind of step was controlling video and really getting into what statements I was making with that. And as I started working with pop concerts like Pitbull, where I could control the video and control the lights, it just kind of really started to flow, because you're already doing a large part of what creative or show direction is for a concert. Those are the two other main components. Then you're just working on maybe if the artist has a set, or maybe if where the dancers kind of come in. And that's not really much of the added skill set beyond how do you network? How do you talk to those people and understand their language enough to bring in their art and not try to just like diminish their art, but fully collaborate and bring in those art, like how, and you're more like a team captain kind of grabbing these different things. But as long as you have a really concrete vision of what that moment needs to be, what the big scheme's going to be, this always felt like it played together.
That about you. I feel like you always have this really like poignant, point of view. And I think that's one of the things that like you are very much heralded in, especially the jam band community, as you said, because they really know you. They really have developed a relationship with you as an LD. And what do you think makes an innovative lighting show these days? Like, how is it not just like all the same kind of effects and gobos and like, what makes it different?
That's a difficult question, because the reality is a lot of them are all the same. And, sometimes, there's very much the jam band approach. It comes down to the geometry of how the lights are. It comes down to color combinations. It's a very driven down kind of aesthetic that has been widely adopted because it's super effective. It's a great jumping off point. And yeah, you can have effects and you can do all this. So when you're talking about jam band lighting in that kind of broader term that really affects EDM folks, that are in the jam thing. It affects bluegrass, all of these different bands. It all stems of this one style. What makes that groundbreaking or cutting edge is the skill set of the person running it, and the listening, and the being open, and it's not a bunch of buttons. It's about literally an LD opening up to the kind of this greater energy and servicing the music with as little ego involved as possible. And then also that LD having a good sense of music and dynamic and theatricality. And that's why, there's a lot of dispute over whether or not a person's show, like what you load into the console, because every console can be set up different. Lots of people are really care about their show file as intellectual property. And I know that for me, I don't care at all if someone has it, because my intellectual property is literally right here.
Yeah.
It's me being able to divorce myself of the ego, the anything, the me. Mm-hmm. And for that period of time, serve the music and be as engaged in the energy amongst everything in the room, and serve those moments as faithfully as possible, and not just trying to use every effect I have. And no dig on that, because the EDM thing, there's not that same pulse that you get with a band. It's so dictated, so predetermined already. So in that case, with the EDM thing and things that are more time coded, and let's say even, I wouldn't say into the pop realm yet, but the EDM bit that is super popular right now, a lot of it comes into really innovative mathematical thinkers that are coming up with brilliant, unique effects. When you have a bazillion lights, how do you make it more than flash and trash? How do you come up with some very unique and innovative effects? And that's maybe not something I excel at as much. Like, I try to turn everything more towards a rock or live band kind of vibe. That's just where I came from.
How would you describe it, like, for people who haven't seen your work, like, what would you say is kind of signature of when you design a show?
I mean, I think I've been very blessed to be able to make really big looks. I definitely had some cool looks when I had just a few lights, but I've been really blessed in my career to be able to have a lot of lights. And I think the geometry that I create with that, there's a lot of power, and, it's a lot about those angles and color combinations. I think that those are a lot of things that people can look at and be like, that's signature me. But they could also look at that and say, but that's also a jam band. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if there's one person on stage or whatnot. People are going to look at that and be like, that's still very jam bandy. Mm-hmm. I think when it gets into execution, I think there's a little less noodle and a little bit more trying to, especially in an EDM, in working with Bassnectar, there was a lot of trying to find the phrasing in the music and have that phrasing be organic.
Yeah.
Instead of it being, this is the actual phrasing. Like, how do you make bleeps and bloops and crazy wobbles and stuff have the flow and feel of a rock concert?
Mm-hmm. And aesthetic art form, I'd like to really feel what those patterns are going to feel like.
Yeah. And it was really interesting because near the end of my second tenure with him, we were watching this video from a concert, and he was like, musically, this is happening. Why aren't you doing this with the lights? And I was like, well, you've already got other elements doing that. You have video smashing precisely with it. I was like, listen to this sound. And I was emulating like almost like the exterior wobbles or the sonic territory that the beats were happening inside. Right? Like, because if you're listening to something, it's like, here's the beat right here, but then there's this echo and vibe and sense of locality to the sound. Like, what universe is this happening in? And when I close my eyes and listen to music, I'm, in this very specific, almost 3-dimensional space, and that there's sounds that are closer and further away. And so I was like, how it feels like right now in this song, an elephant's dragging its feet through mud. But it's forceful. I was like, that's what I'm doing with the lights. My lights are this trudging animal seeping out of this ooze, and that your energy is coming from other elements. And it didn't seem like he got it. You know, he's like, okay, I get it. But then he's like, but I would rather you do this bop, 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 bop thing. Okay. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, and that's fine. You know, it's his show.
Sure. You know? That's amazing. I feel like that you've always been so good at seeing a bigger picture and selling that bigger picture. And that's so much of what we do as creatives is we actually have to just stand by our work and stand by the way that we envision things. And sometimes that means that we're not the favorite person in the room because it's not about being likable. It's about putting out great content. You know?
I would say that oftentimes it makes you not the best person or the most favorable person in the room. I mean, I've been plagued with that a fair amount of my career because I do have the conviction that I know what I see in my head as the end vision. And that sometimes, and that's kind of one of the things I've gotten really, that the exercise in being a creative and show director, it's less of a skill jump for me and more of a confidence jump. It's being able to walk into a space and be like, this is what we're doing, guys. And it's just because it is. And that's a very difficult thing to do coming from the bottom up. I find that organizations that hire a creative director to come in, right, that creative director has the clout of the word creative director. And that from the instant they come in, everybody underneath is going to be like, oh, that's the creative director. Right. But if you come up through the ranks, if you're the lighting designer that then takes over some video and then you take over this, you're almost always fighting for credibility. You're fighting for the client to see you in a different way, to approach dialogue with you in a different way. And that can be super difficult. And it can be difficult even if, you know, you're brought into a pre-existing deal where you're supposed to be the creative director and the artist and the management are not empowering you enough.
Oh my God. Yeah, totally. You know? When I started and I find that I always face this exact challenge too, as a creative director. I feel like I look at people like Steve Jobs, who was notorious for being incredibly demanding and unforgivable with compromising on his ideas. And I look at that like, well, that got them places. And
it also got him fired a couple times. But it changed the world.
But that is the balance, right? It's like, when are you going to forfeit your complete vision for the sake of the wellness of the crew who doesn't want to do the extra hours, who doesn't want to, but you're just like, it's in the extra that extraordinary exists. Literally in extraordinary that's what exists. It's like, otherwise it's just same old.
I mean, I've always been about going the extra mile. I think that one thing I've always struggled with is gauging people's expectations in reality, though, and figuring out how to make compromises inside that. One issue that we had working with Shakira is that she wanted to start rehearsing as soon as we had the rig up in an arena. We had like a month plus to rehearse in there. And like, we didn't even get like a day before, she wanted to be in there. And okay, I get that. But there's no way production is ready at that level on the schedule we were at. You know what I mean? And no one's fault. That's not reality. And that sometimes you have to set boundaries and really level with people. Totally. Like if you have an artist that does not necessarily care about being as involved in the creative process early on, and you've dealt with managers or you satellite islanded out and done it all yourself, and you come in because you don't get the feedback you need in a timely manner, and say you got 2 weeks to produce all this video or something for a show, and you go in and you play it and the artist's like, well, I don't like that. I'm like, okay, cool. But your show opens tomorrow. You didn't necessarily want to be involved. This is your budget level, like all these things. It sucks because, especially if you're not a big company that doesn't have like a specific account manager that can field these tough questions with management, you as the creative director who's supposed to be having this bond with this artist is now thrust in the scenario where you have to be like, well, your budget doesn't pay for this.
Yeah.
And that is awful. And that it oftentimes really stifles the creative process in a pretty serious way.
Yeah. Going back to kind of just like facing some of that adversity, and I totally feel what you're saying about coming up in the ranks and people taking you seriously. And for me, I started directing big shows at like young. I think I was like 24 when I started doing, or maybe younger, 22 when I did my first show at Coachella. So pretty young. And when I would walk in the room, they're like, who the fuck is this like 19-year-old trying to tell me what to do? And also being a female and not knowing the touring group. Some of these guys have been on tour together as a family for like 20 years. And all of a sudden you step in and they're like, who the fuck are you? And I'm wondering.
It's a tough dynamic for sure, right?
Yeah. And like you as an openly gay man, I feel like, has that ever been an issue? Have you ever seen anything that has like challenged you as being openly gay in especially this industry, which you'd think would be kind of more open?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because I wasn't openly gay until I was very established. Mm-hmm. I came out when I was 32, which by that point I had already gone through the significant part of my tenure with Bassnectar, where we were playing arenas, doing huge shows. I had a great resume. I'd worked with Animal Collective, Stone Sour, and Papa Roach, and all these folks. And so it's like, to me, being gay was just always such a negligible part of who I am.
Sure.
Like, it literally is like it's a non-factor for me in my mind. But at the time, I have to admit, I did not give my friends, I did not give my family, I did not give the community, I did not give the profession, I did not give any of those people the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. And I wish I had, because I would have gotten many valuable years of my life to be able to spend living my truth. But I found that when I came out, like, I had basically hit a point where it was just too overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like, you just feel terrible and you want to die. And it got real dark. And then one day I was just like, screw this shit. And I came out, and basically the short thing of a week, and very quickly after that, like within 2 weeks, 3 weeks after that, I don't give a shit. Like, it was like fully actualized homosexual. I didn't necessarily start saying queen or unleash my my fullness of character, but it was very quickly that I was just like, I'm gay and I really don't care what anybody has to say with it. And I had artists that I worked with reach out to me. Even in like the heavy metal scene and the punk scene, all these folks that I like had always feared that I would lose my gig over something like this, or that these people would be uncomfortable around me. All of that proved to be very wrong. Like Stone Sour this year put up, like, for Pride, put up their logo in Pride. And like, I've had all of the members of that. I ended up touring later with them, and setting up a tour with them after I was openly out. And it was great. I mean, me coming, I would put to anybody in our industry, I think coming out in this industry specifically is probably the easiest thing. And I think if you're in the creative arts, it's only ever been a bonus for me personally. I know that there's people in the closet, and I think that it's amazing the progress we're making, that more and more people are being empowered, that the way that we see homosexuality, LGBTQA pluses, all of it, how it's being shown on television, in movies, the spotlights that are being shown on the very, very wide, colorful, rainbow-tastic spectrum of folks that don't fit into this heteronormative cisgender box. The biggest lesson is you got to give those that you love and that you choose to share your energy with, as long as you're a genuine person and that you're being legitimate with your energy. Because my friends, like when I told them, my best friend Whit was just like, well, he started crying. He's like, well, now I get my best friend back. It's like, as I was getting more repressed and more upset and angry, I was pulling myself away from valuable friendships because I couldn't be my true self around them. And I wanted to huddle down, and then you want to spend that energy with just gay people and stuff. And it's just a very bizarre thing. And the transitioning from and the comfortability that you get as you come out is different for every person. And there's all these extenuating circumstances that surround it. But yeah, for LGBTQ folks, everybody out there, like, it is so much better once you come out. And if you're not in a place that's safe to do that, start making serious plans to get to where you can do that, because you're the only person that's going to do that for you. You're the only person that's going to get you into a place where you can live your 100% authentic self.
I mean, and I noticed the difference. I met you, way back in the Bassnectar days, and I don't think you were out then. And just your whole vibe, your whole persona is really night and day different.
I've heard that a lot. I was a prick. I was so mean, man. I was so mean. And I think, being repressed does that to you, and it heightens. For me, I stayed in the closet because I had a goal and I needed to achieve that goal, and that was bigger to me. Like, I identify more of myself in my career and in my arts than I do in my sexuality. So it was more important than me doing that. But it also makes you dictatorial. It'll give you a bit of a Napoleon complex. It'll make you angry at people that are happy.
Sure.
Because you're not. It makes you angry at other gays. It makes you judgmental of other gays. It makes you judgmental of anybody that's their authentic self and enjoying that. I do feel a lot of times very adolescent because I don't feel like I got to start my life that a lot of folks start when they're 15, 16. I didn't get to start a big section of identity development until I was 32.
Well, some people don't come out till their 60s or 70s. Yeah.
It's a shame. Do it. It's rainbow bright, fluffy. You can say yes and feel great about it.
Oh, that's so good.
You can laugh authentically. It's a great world. Come on.
That's awesome. So, I don't want to stay on the subject too long, but we did bring up Bassnectar's name a few times, and he's kind of in the news right now for some allegations that are not in his favor.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to know what your thoughts are on that. We both worked with him. We both put in some really great work there. Do you feel like when you work with an artist whose reputation has shifted like that, what do you think is the proper, as affiliates, do you just cut ties and say, I never worked with that guy, or what?
I mean, oh, wow. Yeah, I know. It's I think fans, I think everybody that's ever associated with the whole organization is reeling through a fair amount of this stuff. I think unequivocally, the first thing you do is, stand with victims and be empathetic to those damages that have been done. I will say that for anybody that wants a much better worded and more concise construct of how I feel about this scenario, Dylan Gates, put out a video yesterday on YouTube that speaks very specifically and really personally identifiable to me of how I feel about the project in a very eloquent way. But I will say this, it's very difficult. I can't go and delete 10 years of my art. It's a tough pill to swallow because so much of my lived experience in the Bassnectar scenario is not that. Like, it's 100% not that. And that realistically, my work and everything with Bassnectar was very much cut off from Lauren. I think most people, he's dropped in, he's pulled out. It's so much bigger of a thing. There's a whole community of people and so much love and so much positive and so much incredible things put into this world. And that it's a real shame that love and that energy and that just magic in that room will not be felt in that scenario again. And that those memories will be tarnished for so many. I mean, it's tough. It's 10 years of my artistic legacy that I feel profoundly speaks to who I am as an artist, where I had a lot of tools and I had all this stuff. Like, I work for a bunch of amazing people now, but there's no other real artists I work for whose fan base I feel personal connection with, and that represents a genealogy of kind of community that I come from.
And you're right. And I think it's like a beautiful thing to identify and separate Bassnectar Lauren from Bassnectar Camp, because there are, there was a whole village of people that were genuinely putting out great work, genuinely creating really strong messaging around community, around support, around mental health awareness.
That was helping victims, and that work was helping victims of similar allegations. You know what I mean? And that, on a quantum level, the amount of good that Bassnectar as a community and entity put out to the world, and that it was incredible art, incredible music, that so many people contributed to, and that it is a shame and it's sad. And it's really tough. I don't know how I go and cut that out. Like, I don't, it's really sad that I have to even question whether or not like I'm allowed to use one of my biggest resume things in the future because it might scare off clients. Like there's it's really tough. It's tough. And I'm not defending in any way the allegations or anything like that. And I'm not, the evidence is what it is. And truth will be told out there, but it is just it's really tough to grapple, and that the ripple waves that come out of it. I mean, it's a lot of people that have been out of work, but kind of knew that they eventually would have jobs again that now no longer do. Yeah. It's organizations that were actively employing people while also doing really beneficial things, that those, not going to be there anymore. And you can't whitewash away. You can't just take the name off the website and do all this stuff, and all of a sudden all of that disappears. It would be a shame. It's just, I don't know. It's confusing. To be quite honest, I haven't completely reconciled.
Totally. And I'm excited to see the shift now that like fans are not afraid to come out. There was a variety of artists that came out recently where their names, where a bunch of allegations have come out against them. And like, it's no longer the 80s where it's just like sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like you can get away with totally raping women on the sidelines and like, no one's going to say shit. Like, I love that we're in this time now. Like,
absolutely. But I got to say, my lived experience with Bassnectar was definitely not sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and was like, to a fair amount of degree was the exact opposite of that. So that's where it's been cognitive dissonance of me being like, okay, cool. I've heard the recordings. I know what's going on, but also my experience in the Bassnectar community, backstage, on buses, everything was never that. So it's tough. But I will continue to be proud of my artwork that I did through that. I will continue to be proud of the amazing community that sprung out of that, and all the other artists that it gave rise to. There are all these, it's like little succulent clone babies of a beautiful community all out there. And I think that there's a lot that fans can go once the hurt gets, worked through. But there's a lot that this community should and can feel very, very proud of in a calculatable way,
Yeah. And so maybe that's a good way to close it, is like, because I just feel like we're all kind of in the middle of this like self-reckoning right now. I know that I personally feel like I'm in like my own existential crisis around like, what am I doing? What do I make anymore? What's and I'm choosing to have gratitude around this feeling of some loss and some chaos, to have gratitude of like, okay, this is where I get to draw strength and recreate, and create something that I would not have been on this path had it not been for this time. And I'm just wondering, like, you've obviously done a lot of work on yourself over the years, and you've really come out the other side as a truly expressed artist, really clear, really confident about your vision. Is there a time that you can recall where you really felt like you had to you were in a crisis moment and you had to make a choice, and it got you to where you are now?
Yeah, I think honestly, if it harkens back to the last topic, it was quitting Bassnectar. Quitting Bassnectar was the first time I didn't have a choice, and it led to great things. I got fired, and all of a sudden I had to be like, holy shit. And I had to build my entire career up, literally go back to doing theaters, and really build the whole thing up again, which has been fantastic for me. But the second time, I was leaving something that I knew I truly loved, the art. I loved the fans, and that I was so comfortable in my meanness and so comfortable in how I expressed my art. And I felt it like I had finally hit a point where when I got behind the console, I was doing exactly the thing, and that the energy was super pure and guided. But that everything else didn't work. Everything else in that organization, I had put everything else that I had been working over the last 3 or 4 years that had been bigger than Bassnectar on hold. You know, I stopped doing pop concerts that were doing stadiums around the world to go back and do Bassnectar, because the art was really pure to me. It was really, truly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And that was home for me. And it was great to have that opportunity, but I felt I had to get the fuck out. And that was incredibly difficult. And it was jumping off a huge cliff.
What was so clear to you that you had to leave?
One, the creative environment. And as I was achieving the things that I thought were great, they were consistently being knocked down a bit on other ends of it, and that I wasn't getting to make the decisions I wanted to make, and that I knew, like, hey man, I have like a resume where like this is like decisions nobody should be arguing with me about this. You know, like this is what's right, you know. And a bunch of people were like, no. And so I was like, okay, whatever.
What are your we can't fuck with these things now, like these are your standards?
I mean, for me, I definitely have to be able to control the lights. Like, I'm not interested in taking gigs where I at least don't have that say so, at least initially. Maybe you work to a point in the thing where some other people could have input, but you at least have put your foot down. But that's my main instrument. So it's really, for most gigs, I have to be able to have that. But now I need to have direct contact with the artist. It does, like, I'm not pitching ideas to management. That's really detrimental, I think, to the creative process. You shouldn't be you should be working with your production manager to be pitching a concept that's affordable and that is real. And so that kind of one-on-one interaction with a production manager, but knowing that the final artistic pitch goes to the artist, is really important. For me, I'm not going to compromise on the gear that I end up using, right? Like, you have to have exactly the light boards that I want and things like that. But yeah, I'm also not going to be in a scenario where it's in any way toxic. You know, like, if there's not a vibe there, or the
shit these days,
if the vibe starts to get weird or something like that, and you're just not feeling it, I feel like it's behooves you and the artist and everybody in it to say, hey, this is not gelling. You know, and a lot of people are forced to stay in projects that aren't gelling for the finances of it. You make a commitment with an artist or a project for a specific period of time. It's tough because obviously you're going to have to make some hard adjustments in your life. But what will affect more negatively your career is having ill relationships with things, because it will always deteriorate before you get to showtime, and the best product will not come out of that. And that's a tough choice. It's super tough. I've gotten much better at saying nope. I may be too good at it, if I'm being honest. Like, at this point, I'm a little trigger happy.
Where you have been too good at saying no, but honestly, like, for me, I watched it in a state of awe and just been like, and I've highly respected you for it. I think that there aren't enough people who are willing to have the conviction that you have for the vision, and are willing to just say, no, like, we're not going to compromise right now. Like, this has to be the vision. And I think that that's awesome. And also just the level of confidence that you took, and the willingness that you had to take a bet on yourself to leave these like major clients that you've had for so long, the history, to just take a bet on yourself. That just speaks volumes about like not being afraid to take the leap.
Well, and they're not all going to work, you know. It's gambling, you know. Like, I saw this post today on a friend of mine, Nick Strands. He's like an inspirational blog or whatnot. And it's like, people think that this is a path to success, and it's really just like all over the place. And you got to open yourself up to, you know, if you're really into it, you're just going to take the good with the bad and try to hope that the bad doesn't push you down enough to make you want to quit doing the good. And it can burn people out. But I think it speaks back to, you have to decide when you're like, this is not the right gig for me, and bow out respectfully and gracefully. And that's important. I mean, for me, I used to say, yes, we're going to do it my way, and be no excuses about it and defiant. But it was very condescending. It's very rude, and it wasn't necessarily taking in everybody's opinions. I think that something I really learned is it's really important to listen to and completely try to the best of your ability. Maybe the person can't explain it that well, so you can't understand it, but try to the best of your ability, absorb everything. And that I find that I get most excited and my energy gets up and I almost have like a panic attack because I get so excited about collaboration.
Well,
it's
hey,
tough.
This is time for us. So thank you so much for joining us. It was really enlightening and inspiring talking to you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And for everyone who's watching at home, just please know that we, like many, are a part of an industry that's just been deeply affected by COVID-19. Not having the events that we normally share our works has been really devastating for our communities and for all the communities that we give to. So one way that you can be a part of our quest to support the arts and to keep sharing these works is to subscribe to our YouTubes. Follow Michael Smalley on his Instagram, which is GLCMGT, or with the company that he works with now, which is Phantom Labs, PHNTMLABS. And follow us on WeHow, where you can watch all of the We Creators series, as well as some of the Glass Hill Canyon concert series. Until then, join us next week. We're up every Wednesday. Till then, thank you. Stay safe, be kind, and love boldly. Bye.
Bye.